Hello, and welcome to another Behind the Poem video. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting my poetry and my book, Between Hindsight and Foresight. This week's poem is entitled Incense and Time. This is a relatively older poem. It's written off the back of a class assignment that I got when I was training to be a teacher, and we were hanging out in the grounds of Canterbury Cathedral trying to put together thoughts and ideas about writing and poetry and creative writing inspired off of something outside. So Incense and Time is a sonnet, and it is in honor of my love of cathedrals and old architecture and things like that. The beauty of the building and the engineering required to create it is only one of the reasons why I really, really like cathedrals. It's not just a matter of faith or religion or belief in the cultural impact that various different religions have had on society at any given time. It is also purely an admiration of the technical know-how and science and engineering required to build those massive structures, and the desire by some of the masons, probably not all of them, but some of the masons and engineers and architects and churchmen and anybody involved in building these beautiful buildings as an expression of faith and an expression of craftsmanship. Something that the beauty of their craftsmanship, of both the building and carving and sculpture and the stained glass, were almost like advertisements of their skill. So a way in the Middle Ages for them to kind of continue on with what they were doing and to bring about the advances in metallurgy and painting and chemistry that were required for stained glass, on the construction techniques and vaulted ceilings and beautiful sculpture that came about as a result of building the buildings. These are expressions of beauty and quiet and peace. I know that not everybody finds peace inside a building. Some people just as easily and just as validly find peace in a forest, or at the top of a mountain, or at the seaside with the waves. All of these places outside that are natural and created by the world itself are just as full of faith and peace for me as a cathedral. But there's something about what happens and how I feel when I walk inside to one of these amazing structures. I do tend to feel a kind of a kinship with the energy, with the idea of the place, the physical manifestation of an idea, whether it's the art itself or whether it is the expression of faith. That kinship is very moving to me, and I try to make sure that whenever I'm in a town that has a building of that kind, whether it's an art gallery or whether it's a cathedral, I tend to make sure that I go in and that I appreciate not just the art on the walls or the sculpture on display, but also the building itself. If you have seen any of my other videos about looking and seeing, and one of the biggest expressions that I can tell anybody when you're looking for inspiration is make sure that you look up, not just at your feet, not just at the other people on the sidewalk, but actually up at the buildings and your surroundings, because there is so much around us that is inspirational, so much around us that is worth writing about, that we sometimes forget about. We sometimes forget is there. So look up and make sure that you feel that kinship with your environment, and that will help you write more. There is a tradition I do. I light the prayer candle for those people that I'm thinking of, regardless of their origin or faith or reason for being in my thoughts. I tend to try and light a candle where I go because of the symbolism of a flame and light and being in somebody's thoughts. This history of faith, this place where community comes together to share an idea their love of faith or their mutual care of the community, I can look for the good and without and within myself in such a place. I also used this particular poem is a little bit more ambiguous, isn't quite necessarily as clear without hearing all of that you just heard from me, all the story behind the poem and the idea. I used to use it as a test to see if I could get the idea of spirituality, get the idea of comfort and ease that visiting a cathedral gave me without explicitly saying it. Because a lot of the times you'll hear English teachers and everything say, don't tell me, show me. It's so much more interesting when you let people interpret and work out what your poem is about, what you are trying to get across. It also allows for personal interpretation. One of the things I like about my poetry and that I've been getting feedback from people is so interesting about my poetry is that sometimes it is both deeply personal and universal at the same time. You can connect with what I'm saying, even if you've never been to these places or had these exact experiences, you can still relate. And so I used to use this particular sonnet to test whether or not people could work out what I was trying to say without me explicitly stating it. Because it's not easy to walk that fine line between extended metaphor or extended imagery and not just explicitly, yeah, this poem is about walking in a cathedral. This poem is about feeling depressed, or this poem is about experiencing a storm or waiting for a friend or any of those things. There are so many different ways that this can be interpreted. It could be interpreted as going home. It could be interpreted going anywhere where you feel at peace. So I like Incense in Time because it is kind of a test poem for me. It's something I purposely used to test whether or not I was able to get across my meaning. And I do like it for in and of its own self, just like I like cathedrals in and of their own selves, separate from their context. Just as a good poem, a good image, and a good feeling that I got when I wrote it and when I reread it. And I hope that you experience something similar when you read it and experience it. Thank you for listening. This has been another Behind the Poem story, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Please do enjoy and stay safe and well and write, because you never know when somebody will want to visit your writing. Bye.